Isang mapagpalayang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Ako po ang inyong Ate Maine at ito ang The Maine Agenda, kung saan ang issue ng bayan ang ating main priority. Pero bago po tayo magsimula sa ating show ngayong gabi, ay tignan po muna natin ang ating COVID-19 cases ngayong araw. Alright, ngayon po ay October 19, 2021, Tuesday. We have a total number of active cases na 63,637 at ito po ay nag-add up sa total number of cases natin na 2,731,735 with a total number of deaths na 40,972 and a total number of recoveries na 2,627,126. So ayan po ang cases ng COVID-19 ngayong araw, October 19, 2021. So wag pa rin po natin kakalimutan to please follow health protocols. Mag-mask po tayo and if possible, mag-double mask tayo, magsuot ng face shield. Though hindi ko naman maintindihan ba't kailangan talaga natin ng face shield. Kung may pagkakataon po tayo magpabakuna na po tayo. And yung mga kaibigan po natin na medyo may hesitance pa po or kamag-anak na kinakabahan pa po magpabakuna, let's inform them. Paalam po natin yung mga benepisyo ng bakuna at syempre po, kung nais po natin na matigil na po ang ganitong klase ng COVID response, bumoto po tayo ng maayos sa susunod na 2022 elections. Alright? So pag-usapan na po natin yung topic natin for today. So last October 10, 2021, pinagdiriwang po natin yung World Mental Health Day with the theme na Mental Health in an Unequal World. So ang mental health po ay isang topic na napapanahon at lagi pong napag-uusapan pero hindi ganun kalalim yung pag-iintindi natin, especially with the people around us and even the government and even our family members. So marami na po tayong mga naririnig tungkol dito, ngunit hindi talaga siya naaaksyonan. Even our government, mahina ang response dito. At marami na rin po tayong mga naririnig na ganitong klaseng issue. And for me, this topic is very close to my heart as someone who is diagnosed with bipolar depression. At ngayong gabi po ay makakasama natin ng ilang individual na i-explain po sa atin at ipapaliwanag ano nga ba ang kahalagahan ng mental health at paano natin malalabanan yung mga personal struggles natin at paano tayo makakahingi ng tulong kung kinakailangan natin. Kasama po natin ay isang mental health advocate at dalawa pong individual who are courageous enough to share their stories with us po. First, kasama po natin ang isang mental health advocate at mula po sa Akbayan Youth, kasama natin si Dr. RJ Nagit. Hi, Doc!
Hello Maine, at hello po sa lahat ng nanonood ng The Maine Agenda. Hello.
Salamat, Doc. Nice seeing you again. Lagi tayong nakikita. Oo. At yung ikalawa naman po natin mga kasama ay isa pong malapit na kaibigan ko at kasama ko po sa laban para po sa rural development. Suki na po siya dito sa The Maine Agenda. Kasama po natin si Miguel Novero.
Yeah, hi, hello Maine, hello sa lahat ng mga nanonood ng Maine Agenda.
Hi sis, nice seeing you again. And ikatlo naman po natin panauhin ngayong gabi, isa pong DJ, isang entrepreneur at isang taong napakalapit sa aking puso. We have with us Mr. Chris CATALUNA. Hi Chris!
Hi! How's it going, everyone?
Hi everyone. Thanks for being here. Maraming salamat. I know that you have better things to do on a Tuesday evening and for Chris on a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Yes. I think.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here. Okay, so to all our viewers po, you may send in your comments, your questions dito po sa ating comment section. So this will be a free-flowing discussion, wag po tayong mahihiya. But before we start, I'd like to ask our guests, si Doc RJ, Miguel, and Chris, to briefly introduce yourselves to our audience. Let me start kay Doc RJ.
Ayun, so ako si RJ, isa akong nurse tsaka medical doctor by profession. Pero ngayon, meron ring mga konting mga projects on community development and public health. So, yeah, mas sa health and public health yung focus.
Okay, thanks. Miggy.
Hello, ako si Miggy. Ako ay isang development worker. Ako'y nagtatrabaho kasama at para sa isang urban poor community, yung Sitio San Roque, isang urban poor community dito sa Quezon City. At ayun din, ako rin ay kasalukuyang isang estudyante ng community development. Yeah.
Salamat, sis. Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm an English teacher. And when I was living in Manila, before I left Manila recently, I was teaching English and I was running a sandwich shop called Idiot Sandwich.
Thank you. All right, so let's start. Mag-usap na tayo ngayong gabing to. So, first question. This is a very simple question but a very loaded one. So, kumusta kayo? How are you guys? Medyo, wait lang. How are you? Simulan ko kay Miggy naman. Kay Miggy ako mag-start.
Kamusta ako? Well, I'm good. Marami nangyayari sa bansa, sa communities. Pero ganoon pa rin. Lumalaban pa rin naman kahit papaano.
Ayun, good to know naman na lumalaban ka pa rin. You keep on fighting pa rin naman. Right? Okay. Chris, how are you?
I'm better, I suppose. Because, I mean, compared to how things were going last year, I was really depressed. Like, just being locked inside of my apartment and everything. And, you know, with how the government was, like, handling the pandemic, it didn't seem like they were doing enough or doing anything at all to kind of move things forward. And, you know, as soon as I got here, actually, you know, I got here in August 1st, I landed here. It's a totally different vibe. And it seems like here things really are opening up, and, you know, the government, along with businesses and everything like that, are trying to do their best to open up, you know, safely and properly, which is, it's a feeling that I didn't, it's kind of a comfort that I didn't have when I was there in Manila, which is sad, you know, to admit, but yeah, I'm happier now.
That's good to hear, no? Doc, medyo naging political agad yung usapan. You know, the government response sucks, right?
Sorry.
It's fine. Like, guys, go out and vote. Go out and register and vote. Anyway, yes. Doc RJ.
Ako, ano naman, okay naman. Pero, syempre, could be better. Ang dami kasing nangyayari ngayon, lalo na ngayong pandemic. And meron naman tayong pagkilala na hindi naman siguro dadali ang buhay, no? Lalo na sa mga susunod na buwan. So, tsatsagain na lang talaga, titibayan yung sarili. So, yeah. So far, so good.
So far, lumalaban. You're trying to fight everything. The shitty government. So again, bumoto po tayo ng ayos. Magparehistro po tayo hanggang October na lang ang registration. So yun. So you touch about yung struggles natin, no? So we're going to talk about mental health. I'd like to ask first, what is your understanding, basic understanding or basic concept of mental health? I'll start with Doc RJ.
Sa akin siguro beyond yung definition ng World Health Organization ng mental health. Parang ako yung pag sinabi sa aking mental health, it's basically accepting yung mga experiences mo, no? Yung mga feelings, both positive as well as negative emotions. Kasi minsan, yun nga, parang minsan nakakalimutan natin na yung mental health is actually feeling and being human, no? And yun nga, as long as you can cope and continue to find meaning dun sa mga ginagawa natin, sa tingin ko yun yung definition ko ng mental health. And of course, gusto ko rin talaga idikit yung intersectionality ng iba't ibang issues. Kasi minsan, akala natin pag sabing mental health, nasa health perspective lang yung titignan natin. So we have to look at ano ba yung, eto na naman, yung government natin, how it actually also affects our mental well-being, lalo na pag hindi na-deliver yung mga basic social services. So, yan.
That's right. Ang ganda, Doc, no? Kasi you touch on being human. Because people think na when you're struggling, you just have to fight on and be okay agad-agad. But in reality, you're just human, feel things, and, you know, everything will be better. Miggy, ano concept ng mental health?
Yung para sa akin din, yung mental health ay isang class issue. Higit sa pagiging isang isyong pang-medical, issue siya ng lipunan na natatouch yung iba't ibang mga pamilya, depende sa kanilang katayuan sa lipunan, no, o yung social standing na tinatawag. At yun nga, kahit na class struggle siya, hindi siya madalas na pag-uusapan as such. Palaging ang pagtingin natin sa mental health, usapang medical, ganyan. Hindi natin nakikita yung na kung sa regular na mga bagay-bagay, talagang merong hindi pagkakapantay-pantay o inequality, mas lumalaki yung gap na yun o mas lumalawak yung inequality na yun pagdating doon sa mental health. At higit doon, isa pang magandang isipin ay yung mental health ay literal na kalahati ng pagiging well-being ng isang tao. Madalas kasi 'di ba iniisip natin kapag fit ka, kapag wala kang physical na sakit, okay ka. Pero ang hindi natin nauunawaan ay yung mental health ay literal na kalahating porsyento ng pagkatao mo at ng pagiging okay mo, no? At yun nga, malaking epekto niya, hindi lang din individually, pero yung epekto niya sa isang komunidad, lalo na sa mga marginalisadong komunidad, mga urban poor, mga magsasaka, katutubo, yun.
Thank you, Miggy. And yun nga, the theme of the World Mental Health Day for this year is mental health in an unequal world. So it's really a classist issue because, for example, you're in a marginalized area and you feel these things and sabihin na lang, oh, nag-iinarte ka lang, right? O just maarte ka lang. But in reality, you're suffering from such things. Chris, what's your basic understanding of mental health?
Well, I mean, I think I honestly didn't even consider my own mental health until I had like severe depression, and that was when I was like 16. And it's crazy because like I remember when I was like feeling this way, and I was feeling, you know, I was like contemplating suicide and things like that. I reached out to someone in my family, and you know, I was telling them how I was feeling and what I was going through, and they said, any problems that you're having can be solved in this house. So they didn't support therapy. They didn't support like reaching out to other people for help. So I guess, and at that time, you know, obviously I was very young, but I didn't realize until I was a lot older that it's really a part of like Asian culture, especially our parents and our grandparents. There was this kind of stigma, you know, over discussing mental health and wellness in general, you know, because, you know, like for my thing, it's my parents, you know, like they were concerned about me seeing a therapist because they were concerned about how other people would see it, you know. So it's something that, you know, especially in Asian culture, just now, like within the last few years, is becoming more acceptable to discuss, you know, which is really great. Because, you know, for us growing up, you know, especially when we were teenagers or whenever we were going through it, let's say high school or college, you know, we might not have been able to discuss it as openly.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Right. Thanks, Chris. Doc RJ, parang may gusto kong i-add dun sa sinabi ni Chris.
Wala naman, pero siguro dagdag ako dun sa point ni Miggy kanina. Aside from class issue siya, it's also important to consider gender dun sa pagtingin natin sa mental health. Kasi may mga gender differences rin in terms of how we experience stress, in terms of how we cope, di ba? So lalo na yung mga kababaihan, no? Lalo na ngayon naka-work from home setup yung mga tao, di ba? Minsan usually yung reproductive work kasi na-assign siya sa mga kababaihan. So it adds another layer of burden sa mga kababaihan. And of course, yung mga kasama natin from the LGBT community. So yung mga ganong mga concerns should also be looked at, no? Kasi ngayon parang pag tinignan natin pag tinignan namin yung mga pasyente, parang hindi masyadong matingkad yung pag-uusap about gender. So, yun, hopefully magkaroon pa tayo ng mas feminist approaches when we talk about mental health.
This question will be for Doc RJ kasi let's ask about yung medical aspect on this. Chris mentioned a while ago that he suffered depression. So how would you know if you're suffering from depression? Ano yung mga signs and symptoms from a perspective of a doctor?
Well, siguro simulan muna natin na parang ano ba yung mga clues, no, para masabi mo na hindi na ito normal reaction. Kasi sabi ko nga kanina, pwede magkaroon ng negative emotion but it's not automatic na disorder na siya, no? So meron tayo tinatawag na 5 Ds of diagnosis, no? So first is dysfunction. So kung hindi na nakaka-function sa school, sa work, hindi na naalagaan yung sarili, yon, pwedeng maging clue yan na dysfunctional siya. Pangalawa ay yung deviance, no? Merong mga iba-ibang kinikilos or hindi common yung mga actions niya. Yun yung pwede nating gawing clue rin. And then third is distress, no? So yung insight niya doon sa problema niya. Pag negative ba yung surroundings niya, negative rin ba yung emotions niya? Or proportionate ba yung feeling niya doon sa situation kung nasaan siya. So yun yung pangatlo, distress. And then fourth is danger, no? So danger to other people or danger to oneself. So kanina na-mention yung suicide, 'di ba? So that can actually be a clue na baka hindi na to normal reaction. And usually when the feelings are long, no? Long standing, chronic sila, matagal yung duration, that's the last D, duration. Tapos hindi mo ma-explain kung bakit may ganong symptom, then probably it's a clue na na clinical disorder na. So for depression, dinidescribe siya usually as extreme sadness but you cannot pinpoint the specific cause. Or kung meron mang cause, parang hindi proportionate yung lungkot mo doon sa sitwasyon na nasa harap mo, no? So, syempre, meron itong impact in terms of how you eat. Pwedeng kain ka ng kain o hindi ka kumakain. Pwedeng tulog ka ng tulog or hindi ka natutulog at all. Or meron kang loss of interest in the things that you used to enjoy. Tapos, syempre, pag meron kang thoughts of self-harm or suicide or feeling of hopelessness, helplessness, baka ano na yun, hindi na siya normal reaction.
Mm-mm. Thanks, Doc. Miggy, Chris, something to add to that? Like when you experience these things, like Miggy or Chris, want to share?
Totoo yun. Nag-iiba-iba rin yung karanasan kasi kada pasyente o kada tao. Like for example, me when I was diagnosed with bipolar 1, iba yung symptoms ko. Mas manic yung pag sinabing manic, mas extreme na masaya yung hyper yung nararamdaman ko, tapos biglang magka-crash pababa na magiging depression. Yun na, magkakaroon na ng dangerous thoughts and actions, ganyan, risky behavior. So yun, iba-iba rin siya na mahalaga din na matandaan ng mga viewers na lalong-lalo na sa mental health, hindi siya parang cookie cutter na may checklist kang palaging chine-checkan, no? Kasi minsan ganun yung at least doon sa personal kong karanasan, may time na dinenay ko siya kasi feeling ko hindi ko na-hit lahat ng mga symptoms na dapat niyang ma-hit.
Right.
Pero yun nga, nung nagpa-konsulta ako, may nakausap akong doktor, doon ko nalaman na diagnosed ako at maari na hindi ko nararamdaman lahat, pero hindi ibig sabihin nun na wala akong nararamdaman.
Right. Hindi valid, right? Before Chris answers, I'd like to inform our viewers po, trigger warning lang, yung topic po natin ay mental health. So may mga ibang topic po na maaring hindi sensitibo po para sa ating mga manonood, kagaya po ng mga nabanggit na kanina. Alright. Chris, anything to add to that?
I'm trying to think. I was going to say something. Hold on. No, okay. So for me, I was never diagnosed. But again, it's because I went through it at such a young age that, I guess, me and my mom, we didn't really talk about it again. So I was 16 when it happened. But we didn't talk about it again until I was about 23. And when we had that conversation and I brought it up to her, she started crying like over the phone. She felt bad because she didn't, I guess, and what she explained to me was that what I was expressing to her and what I was asking from her was not something she was used to, because even for her, when she was growing up, it wasn't something that we talked about. Mental health and just being okay wasn't something that we really talked about because I don't know if I don't know. I guess it's just for me. I noticed it's a really like Asian thing where there's this obsession with the surface. So it's like no one cares about what's going on inside of your home, but as long as you look presentable and you say the right things in front of the right people, then you're good. There are no problems. There can't be problems. But I think it wasn't until, for me, my realization when I noticed that I was like depressed and had suicidal thoughts and everything was when I found myself kind of going through this checklist of things people do before they actually do commit suicide. They start, they start cleaning up their apartment or their room, wherever they're staying. They start, for some reason, I don't know why, but like I started writing letters explaining to people why this happened. And yeah, and then it wasn't until later that I started doing more research on my own and realizing, okay, like what I went through was real.
Right.
And yeah.
That was kind of difficult to hear, but
intense, yeah.
You're doing better now, which is a good thing.
A lot better, yeah.
It's good to hear. Doc, Chris mentioned a while ago yung Asian thing and the family thing. And as Filipinos, I think it's a very Filipino thing as well to dismiss yung feelings na ganito. Anong masasabi natin dito? May research na ba on this, on the cultural sensitivity sa mental health ng mga Pilipino and Asians in general?
Well, kung titignan natin yung yung psikolohiyang Pilipino, ang daming sinasabi kasi about the concept of hiya, no? And
Right.
yung hiya kasi yun nga parang kung sakali na meron kang family member na nagkaroon ng mental health problem, and usually stigmatized kasi sila eh. So pag ayun, nagkaroon ka ng ganun sa family, then medyo may hiya yung family members, no? And sometimes it actually affects how people access services eh. So naalala ko dati nung nasa hospital pa ako nagwo-work, meron kaming patient na minor. Tapos syempre pag minor, kailangan mo ng parental consent coming from the parent. So pinatawag namin yung nanay, tapos we tried to explain na kailangan ng assessment, baka kailangan pa nito ng medications later on, or even na confinement sa hospital. Tapos yung nanay, ayaw niyang maniwala. Ayaw niyang maniwala dun sa explanation namin. So later on, nung kinausap pa namin yung bata, parang sabi na nag-ipon pala siya mula sa baon niya just to seek services. So yung mga ganun na parang nakakatunaw siya in a way kasi alam mo yan, yung bata alam niya yung
Nararamdaman niya,
di ba?
Yeah.
Tapos hindi siya nabigyan ng services. So yun, yung mga stigma na ganun, parang dinadala nila yan eh. Yung mga mas nakakatanda sa atin na walang access to services. So very important talaga yung mental health promotion pa rin at this point in time, kahit na ang dami ng mga lumalabas na materials right now.
Okay, so it's really parang up to now, medyo taboo pa rin siya. Despite everything na napag-uusapan na on social media, on mainstream media, medyo stigmatized pa rin tayo. So my next question is, how did the society, specifically the government, the government again, I love talking about the government, the people around you and your family, affected yung point of view natin sa mental health. Kasi nga, sabi natin, di ba, intersectional yan, maraming factors. So, paano nakaka-apekto yung pamayanan natin, lipunan natin on the view of mental health ng isang tao? I'll start with Miggy.
Yung kanina, di ba, parang napag-usapan yung konsepto ng hiya at saka it's a Asian thing. Bukod doon, isa sigurong dahilan kung bakit hindi nabibigyan pansin yung mental health ay dahil nga, yun nga, being it a class issue, yung prioridad na binibigay ng tao doon, bumababa siya dahil meron silang ibang bagay na kailangan nilang unahin at yung mga bagay na yun ay essential doon sa kanilang survival. So, halimbawa, ilagay natin yung sarili natin sa isang pamilyang urban poor na kumikita ng below minimum wage. Kung ikaw ay halimbawa kumikita ng 400 pesos sa isang araw at 10,000 sa isang buwan, sa isip mo, kung ikaw man ay may nararamdamang iba mentally, hindi mo na siya iisipin kasi hindi naman siya nagmamaterialize eh. Hanggat wala pa nangyayaring masama, hindi mo na siya iisipin kasi kailangan mo munang bumili ng pagkain, kailangan mo munang bumili ng bigas. At mind you, napakamahal ng mental health treatment sa Pilipinas. Yung, halimbawa, yung therapy na lang, nag-average siya ng 2,000 pesos per session yun. At bilang isang mental health patient, kahit naman wala kang sakit kahit wala kang mental health disorder, yung pagpa-follow up nun ay ilang beses yun sa lifetime. So, yun nga, balik tayo dun sa 10,000 isang araw, 20% na agad yun nung income mo sa isang buwan, 'di ba? So, natural, hindi mo siya uunahin kasi may kailangan kang pakaining anak, lalo na kung may anak ka, 'di ba? Uunahin mo siyang pakainin. So, yun yung doon ko mas nakikita kung paano hinuhubog ng lipunan, especially yung social reality, yung pagtingin ko sa mental health. Napakalaki ng inequality at napaka-inaccessible ng mental health care sa Pilipinas. Dahil yun nga, napakamahal ng private practice at wala namang kaso doon dahil mahirap naman talaga kasi siya talaga siyang gawin. Pero okay sana siya kung sinususugan siya ng gobyerno. Kaso, yung problema sa Pilipinas, lalong-lalo na sa NCR, lalong ako personally, I couldn't afford private therapy. So, umaasa ako sa mga public hospital. Sa Kamaynilaan, 2 lang yung ospital. Parang 2 lang yung major hospitals, public hospitals na nag-offer ng free mental health care. So, yan yung PGH at yung National Center for Mental Health. At even din, napakahirap dahil ako naranasan ko, pumila ako ng 6 na oras para makapag-usap sa isang psychiatrist. At maraming tao na nung wala pang pandemic, maraming tao mga nakausap ko taga Cavite, taga Pampanga, which is 20, 30 kilometers away from Manila na lumuluwas para lang maka-afford ng free mental health care, no? So, yun yung kung paano natin tignan yung mental health being a class issue na hindi parehas tayo ng nararamdaman, maaaring parehas yung sintomas, pero kung paano tayo nagko-cope at paano natin nilalabanan yun ay di hamak na nagkakaiba base doon sa katayuan natin sa lipunan.
The access. Oo. That's true. I can remember pa nga before, there was a time I was still very active magpa-therapy ko. I think per session was 3,500. That's a lot. And I
Tapos
go there.
ano pa yan, yung gamot pa.
Napakamahal
Napakamahal po ng gamot ng mga mental health patients. Hindi siya yung parang biogesic na may generic na 5 piso. Parang nag-average yung mga antipsychotic lang, antidepressant, umaabot ng 50 pesos. Discounted na yon. At kailangan mo yung i-take araw-araw, di ba?
Yeah, that's true. It's very difficult talaga yung access. Kaya mental health in an unequal world. So very pasok yung tema natin. No? So Chris, how did the society, it's your turn, how did society and the people around you affect your view on mental health?
Well, in terms of the Asian aspect, I've already discussed that part. But, obviously growing up in the 90s, into the 2000s, it was one thing to be Asian and have, talk about those things. But it was, this toxic masculinity thing where men weren't, shouldn't discuss those kinds of things because it would make you seem weak, and so having to keep people learned how to keep things in and eventually just bury them to the point where sometimes they couldn't, they would just implode, so, but personally speaking, especially with my family, they've really been more understanding and they've been more open to discussing those things, not just with my issues, but if they're going through things and they need to talk, they know that, if, family or friends, there's always someone there, even if you just want them to listen.
Yeah.
So that's become more readily available. And so I had a question. So here in the US, some health insurance providers actually cover therapy. Is that not the same in the Philippines? It's not covered.
No. Well, we also have to ask, are there many Filipinos that have insurance?
Yeah.
A lot of Filipinos are not insured to begin with.
Wow.
There's only one company who covers for mental health. So there's only one HMO. Pero pag PhilHealth yung pinag-usapan, parang siya, acute inpatient care. So you have to be confined in an institution and it has to be short term. Otherwise, it wouldn't be covered.
Oh. So I mean, I want to ask you guys this. So what do you think it's possible in the future? No, I'm just curious. Do you think, within the next 5 to 10 years, this is something that can become more readily available and provided by, insurance companies, things like that in the Philippines?
Is there a move now in the Senate or in the Congress to add that to our mental health care? Right? There is a law for that.
Yeah.
So what's happening with that na po?
But if you would look at the RA 11036, it has a special shout out to PhilHealth to expand the benefit packages. But until now, of course, one of the challenges in terms of creating those packages is granular data. No, meron ba tayong datos na pagbabasehan? Because right now, if you would go to the different clinics, they have they have a very wide range of prices. No, may mga makikita ka na 800 pesos per consult, may makita ka as high as 5,000 per session. So ganun yung yung variability of data. And yun nga, kung wala kang kung wala kang number of people, wala kang epidemiology about mental health, then you wouldn't be able to come up with the benefit packages that are actually helpful. But then again, yung primary care, hindi pa rin natin siya natutugunan. So actually, there's a move for us to scale up yung mga community-based mental health services by training frontline healthcare workers in terms of providing mental health support. Yun yung isa sa mga pwede nating asahan in short of the PhilHealth, short of the HMOs.
Thanks, Doc. I'm gonna ask some questions from our audience. I'm not gonna read their names. They want to remain anonymous. I would like to pose a question for a mental health patient here in the Philippines. If he or she does not want to medicate, dahil nga masyadong mahal, what can he or she do? I think I'll ask the question to Doc RJ.
Yeah. Well, ano naman, no, respect natin yung patient's autonomy just in case that they don't actually prefer to take medications. So maraming mga options that we can actually give to them. So kung hindi kaya ng medications, then we can provide them psychotherapy sessions. But again, hindi kasi all the time we can actually expect na magiging optimum yung treatment, no, for those kinds of cases. So for a specific set of population, for specific patients, they can actually benefit from medications. Pero hindi lahat rin ay nagbe-benefit sa medications. So it's always a process, no? I think kung kayo na-diagnose kayo ng mental health problem, kung mapapansin niyo yung diagnosis niyo posible nag-iiba-iba rin siya depending on your presentation, 'di ba? So hindi rin lahat ay naging responsive to treatment. That's why it's very important to follow up. Kasi pag nag-follow up ka, pwede nating i-adjust yung dose, yung kung kailangan palitan yung gamot or i-discontinue siya or bigyan kayo ng alternative na treatment. So, maraming options that are available. Pero of course, I recognize na hindi ganun rin ka-accessible economically yung mga options natin.
Thanks, Doc. Another question, I think this applicable naman to all of the guests. As the sponge or receiver of mental health patients, yung mga nagsasabi ng problem, what can you advise to them? Simulan ko naman kay Miggy.
Oo, marami nagtatanong sa akin yan. Lalo na ako bilang aktivista at development worker, nagtatanong, parang hindi ka ba nati-trigger? Lagi na may pinapatay, may kinukulong. Tapos mga nagsasabi ng mga problema. Ako personally, the best thing you can do, and I think the simplest thing you can do is listen. Parang it's really a huge thing. Parang hindi mo naman kailangan palaging mag-advise or magbigay ng solusyon kasi hindi mo rin naman maibibigay yon sa totoo lang yung solusyon. Pinakamahalaga lang yung malaman nilang nandyan ka. Minsan nga parang halimbawa kung kahit hindi kaya ng sarili mong mental health na makinig, yung pagpapaabot lang na nandito lang ako, kapag okay ako, pwede mo na akong kausapin. Or halimbawa kahit na hindi pa sila nag-episode, hindi pa sila nade-depress, pwede mo silang sabihan na kapag nangyari yung ganun, pwede mo kong kausapin. Yung pakikinig, napakalaking bagay nun, personally, for me.
Thanks, Miggy. Chris?
For me, it was writing. Writing really helped me a lot because, again, like I tried even when I knew I was depressed, I tried not to go towards any medication because I didn't mention this earlier, but the depression was brought on by addiction, and so I quit whatever it was cold turkey for the most part. So after 2 years of addiction that I quit, and so the depression and everything. And one thing that really helped for me was writing. I would write about how I was feeling and things like that, and something about like seeing everything on paper, it made everything that I was feeling kind of make sense, and it helped me like kind of piece things together in terms of how I move forward. So writing really helped me a lot, and honestly cooking helped me a lot. So it was kind of just focusing my mind and everything on other things that were more productive. That's how I kind of got out of that funk, and it still happens now. I'll have my really good days, and out of nowhere I'll have my days where I just don't want to leave bed and I just don't want to interact with anyone. And again, the same thing, like on those kinds of days I either just write and kind of like stay off social media, things like that, and the next day I'm fine. So each person is going to have their own ways of coping with depression. And I think that, even, we've been talking about how important it is to seek help if possible. That's true. But at the same time, there are many ways and many people that you can reach out to as well. It may not be a professional, it might be friends or family, but someone who actually is willing to listen. That's all, that's all we really need, is someone that's willing to listen. That's it.
Thanks, Chris. Doc?
Sa akin naman, parang you have to be transparent in terms of how you feel. Kasi yun nga, parang especially for people na laging nilalapitan, kasi may mga ganun talaga mga tao eh. Pag meron kang problem, you naturally gravitate to them. Ay, parang ang dami nakarelate dito ah.
Nakarelate ako doon ah. Oo.
Di ba yung mga ganun tayo mga friends? So parang yung gusto ko lang i-highlight dito that when we address mental health concerns, hindi siya responsibility lang ng isang individual. So kailangan merong karelyebo kung sakali na hindi natin kaya kasi we might not be providing the best support that we can give kung tayo mismo ay hindi okay. So it's very important to be upfront. And it takes practice, no? Lalo na pag yun nga, parang feeling mo sobrang kailangan na kailangan ka ng friend mo. So, probably, pwede mong sabihin sa kanya na nahihirapan ka ngayon, tara, puntahan natin yung isang, yung friend natin na baka makatulong sa atin. Kasi hindi ako okay at this point in time. So, yeah.
Thank you, Doc.
Transparency.
Transparency, ayun. Okay. Hinga lang po muna tayo. Very quickly lang. Let's breathe, no? Medyo bumibigat po yung topic natin. And kaya nga po may trigger warning tayo kasi I think a lot of people can relate to this, no? And hindi naman po nakakahiya to ask for help and to talk to people, especially if you can afford it, no? To go to a therapist and take medication, and sana, no, yung government natin mas magkaroon ng better response sa mga ganitong klaseng issue, no? Mental health is very important. So balik tayo ulit sa government. Do you think that the government is making any effort to prioritize mental health issues in the country? Simulan ko kay Chris kasi he's experiencing a very different kind of government there now compared to the Philippines. So
I mean, it's like same but different. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I mean, mental health here has always, you know, I think for the most part since the 90s has been handled in a sense that, you know, if you do need the help, insurance companies do provide that kind of service for you. So so since the 90s, 2000s, it's already been like pretty readily available under most health insurance. But yeah, I am experiencing something very different here. So, you know, like, you know, that's why I was curious. That's why I asked about, you know, mental health and therapy being covered by insurance in the Philippines, because I wasn't sure. And then you brought up, Miggy brought up the fact that not many Filipinos are insured. And I feel guilty about not even considering that, you know? And, but I mean, is that a priority of the government to make sure that people are insured?
It's their priority to
deafening
It should
silence.
be. Yeah, it should be.
to
But
build Dolomite beaches for our
Oh
mental
my
health.
god.
Guys.
Bars.
And again, the views of the host, the guest does not necessarily reflect those of the show. Paalala lang po. So there. What do you think? Is the government prioritizing issues on mental health besides making a beach to cure mental health daw? So, Doc?
Marami akong skills dyan. Especially, we helped lobby for the Philippine Mental Health Law. And after 3 years, parang hindi pa rin talaga na-implement yung batas, no? Ganun pa rin eh. If you would scrutinize yung budget natin, yung current na deliberations right now, it's still very hospital-centric. So yung meron lang light items doon ay NCMH at saka yung Mariveles Mental Health Hospital. Pero wala akong nakita na specific budget for the National Mental Health Program. So yung mga ganun ba na mga kita mo na hindi talaga siya priority, nakita mo talaga siya sa budget eh. And if you would look at yung kung paano i-integrate yung mental health services sa COVID response natin, mukhang lacking talaga. No? I know there are initiatives by the National Center for Mental Health to integrate it sa mga naka-isolation facilities way back last year, pero I'm not sure kung merong ganun ngayon. And of course, yung medication access program. So kailangan sa government kasi merong libre na mental health medications that you can avail of kung okay yung LGU ninyo at nag-request sila, no? Kasi hindi naman lahat ay alam yon. So yun. Pero yun, patuloy pa rin yung pagte-training ng mga frontline healthcare workers natin, but it remains to be seen.
Thanks, Doc. Miggy, sa ating mga makikita mo sa rural areas, ano yung sobrang laking gaps para protektahan yung ating mga magsaka, mangingisda, especially mga ating mga indigenous peoples, may access ba sila sa mental health services ng pamahalaan?
Yun nga parang, alam mo, gusto kong sabihin na yung negligence ng gobyerno sa mental health ay nakakadagdag dun sa stigma ng mental health ng mga Pilipino. Kaya ganito yung pagtingin ng lipunang Pilipino sa mental health ay dahil pinababayaan ng gobyerno na lumala ng ganito yung sitwasyon ng mental health. 'Di ba parang hindi naman dapat ganito kalala hindi naman dapat pero hindi naman dapat nagpapakamatay mga tao, hindi naman sila dapat gumagawa ng kahit anong delikado. Pero dahil yung kapabayaan ng gobyerno doon sa ganitong klaseng pangkalusugang, yung serbisyong pangkalusugan, umaabot tayo sa ganito. At lalong-lalo na, sa probinsya, kung pupunta ka sa probinsya, meron lang silang isang tawag sa mental health, baliw. 'Di ba? At yung pagtingin nila sa taong baliw ay yung nagsa-psychosis, na wala sa sarili, may multiple personalities, may ganun. At hindi nila kasalanan yun, no? Hindi dahil tanga yung mga tao sa probinsya, kundi manifestasyon yun nung kabiguan ng gobyerno na i-address yung problema sa mental health. Kasi kung halimbawa, yung mga health campaign ng gobyerno sa mental health ay tulad ng health campaign sa diabetes, sa cancer, hindi ganun yung pagtingin ng tao at mas maraming tao, lalong-lalo na Diyos ko sa kanayunan, ito yung mga tao na pinapatay, na dinadahas dahil sa lupa, yung mga nasa urban poor areas, ito yung mga literal na nagpapakasakit dahil sa gutom. Sila yung pinaka nakakaranas ng mental strain, pero hindi nila ma-access yung tulong na kailangan nila dahil nga hindi siya abot Yun nga, tulad ng sabi ko, 'di ba? Kailangan mong pumila ng oras-oras sa isang public hospital para lang matignan ng doktor. Well, ako, di naman ako nagreklamo kasi libre na nga yun. Pero ako, personally, naniniwala ako na hindi mo kailangang pumila ng 6 na oras para makatanggap ng lunas o ng serbisyong medikal. Dapat gobyerno na ngayon lumalapit sa iyo Kasi alam mo may epidemya ng mental health problem sa Pilipinas. So dapat sila na yung lumalapit. Pero still, di ba, ikaw pa yung pupunta, magpapakahirap na pumila, bumiyahe, ganun.
That's true. Thank you for your responses. May follow-up question lang regarding dun sa if ikaw yung receiver ng mga mental health problems sa mga kaibigan natin. So yung question nitong nagtatanong sa atin is for the receiver, if the response or action for an attempt becomes routinary already, should he or she be worried? Doc?
Kung kung routinary na siya, so parang, kasi from time to time naman may mga friends tayo na, yun nga, they're encountering the same challenges, no? So baka kailangan din natin muna mag-explore sa kanila. Kumusta ba yung problem-solving skills nila when it comes to that problem? Pero again, mag-agree ako dun sa sinasabi ni Miggy kanina na we don't provide advice kasi hindi naman natin alam yung buong konteksto nila at gusto rin kasi natin i-promote yung agency ng tao na sila mismo yung susolusyon dun sa problema nila. We just help them reflect ano yung benefits, ano yung risk, no? Ano yung alternatives na pwede nilang i-take. But ultimately, they make the decision. So, kung mukhang pangit tong term, pero maladaptive yung ginagamit na coping mechanism, then probably baka hindi na siya at our level. So baka yon kailangan natin mag-involve ng another person or a specialist already. Kasi yun nga, parang tinry na natin on our end. So parang as mental health advocate, siguro hindi rin natin kaya i-solve lahat, no? Yun yung isa sa mga gusto ko rin i-emphasize. Kasi minsan parang nakaka-pressure rin kasi, di ba? Pag may lumalapit sa'yo at hindi mo siya ma-solve.
Right. That's true. Nakaka-trigger siya actually. Pag feeling mo tuloy ikaw na yung kulang, pero it's not your responsibility naman, di ba? Yeah. Sometimes yung therapist natin, kailangan din ng therapist, di ba? Right? So, okay, balik tayo sa usapin ng pamahalaan and paano sila nagre-respond. And in the context of a pandemic, what is the importance of mental health, especially in this time of a pandemic? It's been like this for 2 years already. So, gaano kahalaga ang mental health natin ngayong panahon ng pandemya? Simulan ko kay Chris naman, how important mental health is, especially in this time of a pandemic.
I mean, last year especially was really, it was bad. It was not great. I was teaching, I was keeping busy, but I've never been a homebody. I'm really someone that if I'm home for more than 2 days at a time, I get cabin fever. So being forced to, to stay indoors for so long, it really took a toll on me to the point where I found myself drinking like a lot, like to the point, and it was crazy. So I would, in the beginning of the lockdown and everything, I would drink with friends over Zoom. I would drink with my friends here in the States and then also my friends in Manila. But I think it was after the second or third week, I realized like, holy shit, I'm drinking every day. And I was drinking practically by myself because I was drinking with my friends, but obviously it was all virtual. But once I realized that, one, I was drinking every day for those past few weeks, and two, um, I felt that it was a problem. It was becoming a problem. My drinking was becoming a problem, and that was my coping mechanism that I didn't even realize. So I quit drinking for the following 2 months just to kind of get a grip on things. And then I started writing again. I started working on more recipes and cooking at home, things like that. So, again, so I had to remind myself how to cope in a more positive and productive way.
Right.
And that's what the pandemic really taught me, that I didn't need to, that I kind of lost sight of, leading up to it, because I was already content, being out and not having to worry about just being stuck indoors for so long. So, yeah, overall, I learned a lot about myself, and I relearned a lot of things that helped me in the past with depression. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Miggy?
I think more than the toll it takes on you personally, you also have to think about the toll that it takes on the whole family or on the people inside the house and even in the community where you live. Kasi yun nga 'di ba, hindi lalo na bilang Pilipino, hindi sanay na lagi kang nasa bahay. At hindi lang ikaw yon, pati yung mga kasama mo sa bahay ganun din. So, halimbawa lahat kayo ganun yung disposition at lahat kayo sumabog, nagke-create siya ng nagke-create siya ng hostile environment sa loob ng bahay mismo. Kaya mahalaga yung mental health ngayong panahon ng pandemic. Dahil bukod nga sa literal na kalahati siya nung kabuuang kalusugan ng isang tao, kailangan din nating tignan yung epekto niya sa macro level, no? Bukod sa individual na level, kailangan siya tignan sa level ng pamilya. Kasi halimbawa yung masamang disposisyon, lalo na yung sa mental health, nagli-lead siya into other different dangerous territory. So, nag-open siya ng avenue for abuse, at violence, no? So, mahalagang tignan siya. No, kung kaya natin na tutukan, actually hindi nga kaya ng gobyerno, natutukan yung pandemya ng COVID-19. Pero kung, 'di ba, nagbibigay tayo ng priority sa pagmamask, pagpe-face shield, at yung pagsa-social distancing, sana kaya din nating bigyan ng priority yung pagbibigay ng psychological first aid, pangamusta sa ating mga pamilya, at syempre yung pag-aalaga sa ating sarili. Kasi hindi naman natin kayang alagaan yung mga tao sa paligid natin, physical man o mental, kung hindi natin naalagaan yung sarili natin.
That's true. Sabi nga, hindi ka makapagbigay sa isang empty vessel, di ba? And gusto ko lang dagdagan, solusyong medikal, hindi po aksyong militar. Anyway, Doc.
Sa akin, kailangan siyang tugunan kasi hindi natin siya nakita before, tapos ngayon parang lumala pa yung mga nasa paligid natin ng mga problema. So we can expect na tataas talaga. So we might be encountering a mental health epidemic, no? Hindi lang natin alam. And sa tingin ko, parang when I was reflecting kung ano yung experience natin ngayong pandemic, siya it's a feeling of alienation. Alienation sa ibang mga tao, alienation sa ginagawa mo, 'di ba? Parang yung may ginagawa ka pero hindi mo nakikita yung meaning kung bakit mo siya ginagawa. To the point na hindi ka na makaplano sa future, 'di ba? Yung lang, just getting by day to day. No? So yun yung isa, yung alienation. And yun nga, parang yung feeling of not able to experience pleasure, sa tingin ko, yun yung isa rin sa mga hindi natin nagagawa. Recently, nagka-COVID rin ako. So, siguro, at the minimum, hindi ko malasahan yung pagkain ko, hindi ko maamoy. That already affects your quality of life, no? Paano pa yung mga tao na, yun nga, ang daming nawala sa kanila, no? So, maliban dun sa alienation, it's grief. lahat tayo nagluluksa. Ang daming nawala sa atin. Araw-araw triggered tayo ng gobyerno, 'di ba? So yung mga ganun nakakapagod, no, na ganun yung yung maramdaman mo, and you don't have the time to actually process it kasi akala mo parang okay lang. Pero later on nag-iipon pala siya sa So and nung nagbabasa rin ako about what a good life is. So aside from finding meaning, having positive feelings, yung isang nakikita rin nila na indicator for a good life is having a psychologically rich life. So ito yung exposure to different experiences, to different situations na ngayon hindi natin magawa kasi nasa bahay lang tayo. And yun nga, kahit na naka-online tayo na environment, hindi ganap yung ating experience.
That's true. Hindi siya buo. Kasi nandito lang tayo, virtual. Walang yung talagang experiensya na nakukuha natin bago mag-pandemya. Okay, last two questions. I think I'll ask this to Doc RJ since ikaw ay isang medical professional. Where can people seek help? Yung mga taong may nararanasan na mental health problems or issues.
Well, yung lagi kong sinasabi is that yung pinaka-accessible and pinaka-cost-effective na mental health support that you can get are the people around you, no? So, kaya nga importante na meron tayong ganitong mga conversations para at least nasi-sensitize paunti-unti. So, hindi naman siguro counselor level yung ating abutin, pero at least being a good friend is already some level of mental health support. Tapos, syempre, nandiyan yung mga guidance counselors. Siguro sa ibang mga companies, meron silang HR na trained sa mga ganitong klaseng support. And then, syempre, pag kailangan ng specialist care, yung nasabi ni Miggy kanina, no? Yung NCMH, yung Quezon City QMMC, no, meron din silang psychiatry na libre, and of course Philippine Mental Health Association, meron silang socialized na support. Yun. Pero okay, mahaba talaga yung pila.
Mahaba pa yung laban. Tsaka mahaba pa yung laban natin para ma-cover to ng gobyerno natin at pangalagaan nila tayo. Salamat, Doc. Before we go, no, I'd like to ask each and every one of our guests kung ano yung message nila or advice to people who are struggling right now and a bit hesitant to get help. I'll start with Chris.
I don't know. For me, what I noticed is even though I made it past depression, it never goes away. It's something that it's weird. It's like, again, I mentioned before, having really good days and having really bad days. So again, it's something that never really goes away, but it's normal. Everyone goes through it in their own way and everyone has different ways to cope. But I guess the one thing that I hope for everybody is that they're strong enough to admit that they can't handle it on their own. For me, that's something that's a big thing. Like, that people know that it's okay to ask for help sometimes, especially when it comes to mental health. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Chris. Miggy.
Sa akin, medyo cheesy tsaka gasgas siya. Pero, yung message ay hindi ka nag-iisa. Mas marami talagang tao na nakakaramdam nung nararamdaman mo. Mas marami pa sa inaakala mo. Kasi madaling isipin na, lalo na, yun nga, stigmatized yung usapin ng mental health. Iniisip mo, ikaw lang yung nakakaramdam. Pero, napakaraming tao. Yung iba nga, hindi mo alam na may ganong pinagdadaanan eh. Yung iba, very successful na professionals, yung iba may pamilya. So, walang isang mukha yung mental health o mental health conditions. At yun nga, you're never alone. At wag mo rin isipin na kasalanan mo yung nangyayari. Kasi parang minsan nagiging bahagi yun ng stigma eh. Nakasalanan mo kaya ka depressed kasi hindi ka nagdadasal, kasi hindi ka nag-ipon, ganyan, masyado kang tanga sa pagjojowa, ganyan. Pero hindi mo kasalanan yun eh. Mahalaga ding isipin na bahagi kung bakit nararamdaman mo yung ganyan at bahagi kung bakit hindi tayo wala naman lunas sa kanya, pero kung bakit hindi bumubuti yung kalagayan natin ay dahil hindi tayo tinutulungan ng sistema na magpakabuti. At dapat integral yung bahagi ng sistema, lalong-lalo na yung gobyerno doon sa ating pagiging mabuti. Hindi naman yun nga yung pag-heal o yung pagiging mabuti ay hindi naman siya linear, 'di ba? Hindi naman siya parang pag mabuti ka, okay na 'yon forever. Darating yung time na babalik ka, magkaka-episode ka ulit, tapos okay ka na ulit. At dapat, meron kang kaagapay doon, no? Bukod doon sa pamilya mo, sa komunidad mo, dapat kaagapay mo yung estado, kaagapay mo yung gobyerno, yung sistema doon. Pero yun nga, ngayon, bigo tayong makuha yun. So, kung ganun nga yung sitwasyon, pwede natin siyang, well, hindi natin siya masusolusyonan kasi nasa level ng gobyerno yun. Pero ang pwede natin gawin, ayun nga, tulad ng sabi ko kanina, pwede mong ibigay yung sarili mo bilang makikinig lang doon sa mga tao na nangangailangan ng nakikinig. Ganun. Kung hindi kayang ibigay yun ng gobyerno, baka pwede mo siyang ibigay para sa pamilya mo, sa kaibigan mo, sa kapitbahay mo, ganun.
Thank you, Miggy. Kasi tayo na naman na nagtutulong, ano natin maasahan sa gobyerno.
Exactly.
It's a different day, guys. That's a different day.
Sorry, getting too political. Anyway, Doc RJ.
Well, sa akin naman parang iba-iba kasi yung readiness ng mga tao to seek support. 'Di ba? May mga times na parang tayo, gusto ko munang pagnilayan, gusto ko munang namnamin yung experience kasi at certain times normal naman talaga na magkaroon ng negative na emotion. So, tingin ko parang once you're ready to seek support, i-push na talaga natin 'to, no? And sometimes kasi matatalisod talaga tayo. May ma-encounter tayo na friend na nag-invalidate sa atin or a mental health professional na hindi natin nakasundo, di ba? So may mga ganung mga experiences pero wag nating hayaan na yun yung maging barrier natin towards wellness. So sabi ko nga kanina, it's always a process para mahanap mo kung ano yung pinakaswak na mental health professional, na form of therapy and the form of support na kakailanganin mo. So it's important that you also keep track, no? Ano ba yung nakakatulong sa'yo at hindi nakakatulong at i-recognize mo na nag-iiba-iba rin yung sitwasyon kung nasaan ka. So you might have different needs at specific times. Pero yun, yung gusto ko lang talaga i-emphasize is that help is always available. Baka hindi lang siya in the form na gusto natin or sometimes kailangan lang rin natin maging bukas dun sa tulong. Kasi minsan yung tulong parang nanggagaling pa siya to the people na minsan hindi mo kakilala. So ang dami kong mga experiences na yung isang person na may mental health problem, nagsabi lang siya sa Twitter or pumasok lang siya sa isang Facebook support group, tapos yun na yung nakabigay ng suporta sa kanya. So yung mga ganun, maging bukas tayo sa kanila. Of course, may mga risks rin yan, pero yun, at least sumusubok pa rin tayo na maging maayos at mabuti.
Thanks, Doc RJ. Muli maraming salamat sa ating mga naging panauhin ngayong gabi, kay Chris, kay Miggy, and kay Doc RJ. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this episode. Ang ganda ng pag-usapan natin. Umabot na tayo hanggang politika. So again, thank you so much, guys. And I hope you guys will have a great rest of the day. For Chris kasi it's until the morning. Guys, so Doc RJ and Miggy, good night. Thank you so much. At lumaban lang tayo, padayon, at malalagpasan din natin to. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, muli maraming salamat ulit sa ating mga naging panauhin at maraming salamat po sa ating mga manonood na nagpadala ng kanilang mga katanungan. Ang mental health po ay napakalalim na issue. Sabi nga nila na ating mga panauhin, intersectional siya, no? Maraming aspeto na dapat nating pag-usapan at it's also a very classist issue na sana po ay matugunan din ng ating pamahalaan dahil hindi naman natin itong susolusyonan on our own. At sabi nga din po ng ating mga manonood, sana po yung mga kaibigan natin, yung mga manonood po natin na may nararanasan na ganitong sitwasyon, sana po magkaroon tayo ng lakas ng loob na aminin yung ating nararamdaman dahil hindi po tayo nag-iisa at may mga tulong po at may mga tao po na handang umagapay at tumulong sa atin. Hindi po kayo nag-iisa. Nandito lang po sila kung kailangan nyo po ng tulong. Pero sana pa rin po, no, ang ating pamahalaan ay mas maging bukas sa pag-address ng mga ganitong klaseng issue. Alright, so tatapusin na po natin yung ating show. Muli ako po si Ate Maine at you may follow me po on my different social media accounts. For Facebook, it's at Germaine Jalandoni de Ruña. For Instagram, it's at Germaine Jalandoni de Ruña. And Twitter, it's at Germaine J. de Ruña. So i-follow nyo rin po pala ang Quarantalk sa aming mga social media channels. For Facebook, that's facebook.com/quarantalkmedia. We also have on Twitter and on YouTube. So please follow our accounts for Quarantalk Media. And the Maine Agenda po is produced by Quarantalk Media, and we are now also streaming on the FB pages of Now You Know at IKOT.PH. Kita-kita po ulit tayo sa susunod na Tuesday kung saan ang issue ng bayan ang ating main priority. Ito po ang The Maine Agenda.